Hello again. We are continuing our discussion of polynomials by talking about special things that happen when you multiply two polynomials together, and we call those special products. So let's get started. First of all, if I were to square a binomial, meaning multiply a binomial by itself, I want to know what the resulting polynomial would look like. So here's four examples, and I'm going to go through each one separately. So for the first one, x plus 7 squared, that's going to be x plus 7 times x plus 7. All right, for the second one, same thing. 2a minus 3 squared is going to be 2a minus 3 times itself. And the same thing for the third one, and the same thing for the fourth one. I'm only doing that so that I don't make the mistake of distributing an exponent. I've seen that done before. I want to make sure that I'm actually multiplying two polynomials together so that I get good answers. All right, if I multiply the two x plus 7s together at the top, I'm going to use the either method that we talked about in multiplying polynomials, and I will get x squared plus 7x plus another 7x plus 49. And that equals x squared plus 14x, because I can collect the x's, plus 49. All right. In the second example, if I multiply that out using the strategies that I know, I will get 4a squared minus 6a minus another 6a plus 9, and that simplifies to be 4a squared minus 12a plus 9. In the third example, if I multiply those 6w plus 1s together, I will get 36w squared plus 6w again plus 1, and I can collect the w's in the middle again to get 36w squared plus 12w plus 1. And in the very last example, if I multiply those together, I get 81f squared minus 72f minus 72f again plus 64. And that simplifies to be 81f squared minus 144f plus 64. So I'm looking for a pattern in all of these answers so that I don't need to go through 3 steps to do each one. All right, I can go directly from the question to the answer. So let's look at what these answers have in common. The very first term in my answer was always the first term in the question squared. So in the case of the first example, x squared is x squared. 2a squared is 4a squared. 6w squared is 36w squared. And 9f squared is 81f squared. So you can see that there's a pattern with those first terms. The middle term is a little bit tricky, but all you have to do is take both terms that are in the parentheses, multiply them together, and then double that. All right, so in the first example, the x times the 7 would be 7x. Double that and you get 14x. The 2a times the negative 3 would give negative 6a. Double that and you get negative 12a, and so on through the other two examples. And then the last term in each answer would be the second term squared. So the last term in the parentheses, if you square that, you get the last number. So 7 squared is 49, negative 3 squared is positive 9, and so on with the other two examples. So if you notice that pattern and you remember that pattern, then you can use it to do other examples. Okay, so here are 4 more, and I'm going to use the tricks that I just learned to write them out in one step instead of 3. So if I have 5x plus 2 squared, remember the first term is what I would get if I square that 5x. And if I square 5x, I'm going to get 25x squared. The middle term is going to be the product of both terms in the parentheses doubled. So 5x times 2 would be 10x. And if I double that, I get 20x. And then the last term is going to be whatever that 2 is squared. Well, 2 squared is 4. So that's my final answer, and I did it all in one step. There's nothing wrong with actually carrying it out in 3 steps if that's what you need to do, but this just gives you a shortcut to find your answer in a shorter amount of time. For the second example, if I square 4b, I'm going to get 16b squared. If I multiply the two terms together, I'm going to get negative 28b, and if I double that, I get negative 56b. And then if I square the negative 7 at the end, that gives me positive 49. So that's the answer to the second one. For the third example, if I square 8v, I'm going to get 64v squared. If I multiply the 8v times 3, that's going to give me 24v. And if I double that, I get 48v. And then 3 at the end squared would be 9. So that's the answer to the third one. And then finally, 6g squared would be 36g squared. 6g times negative 1 would be negative 6g. Doubled is negative 12g. And then negative 1 times itself would give me positive 1. So that's how to do all of those in one step. There's only one other special product that we need to know about, and that is what would happen if we multiplied a binomial by its conjugate. Now, the conjugate means it's the same two terms, but instead of a plus, there's a minus, or instead of a minus, there's a plus. So here's some examples of that. X plus 7 times x minus 7, 2a minus 3 times 2a plus 3, 6w plus 1 times 6w minus 1, and then 9f minus 8 times 9f plus 8. So multiplying anything by its conjugate by changing the sign that's in between the two terms. So let's multiply it out. If I multiplied it out, I would get x squared minus 7x plus 7x minus 49. And the minus 7x and the plus 7x would cancel out in the middle, so I would just get x squared minus 49. If I do the second one, I would get 4a squared plus 6a minus 9. And again, the two middle terms cross out because they're opposites, and I end up with 4a squared minus 9. In the third example, I would get 36w squared minus 6w plus 6w minus 1. And again, the middle terms cancel out, and I'm just left with 36w squared minus 1. And then in the last example, I get 81f squared plus 72w minus 64. And again, the middle terms cancel out, and I'm just left with 81f squared minus 64. So let's see if I can find a pattern in these answers that I got. Okay, at the very beginning, it's the first term squared, again, just like it was in the other special product that we talked about. In the middle, there's always a minus sign. And at the end, it is the second term squared, just like it was in the last example. All right, so let's do some examples now that we know what the rule is and we can save some time. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to square the first term regardless of what the sign is. I'm going to square the second term regardless of what the sign is, and I'm going to put a minus in the middle. So 5x plus 2 times 5x minus 2. 5x squared is going to be 25x squared. There's a minus in the middle, and 2 times 2 is 4. In the second example, 4b squared would be 16b squared, and 7 squared is 49. So my answer is going to be 16b squared minus 49. In the third example, 8v squared is 64v squared, minus 3 times 3 is 9. And in the last example, 6g squared is 36g squared, minus 1 times 1 is 1. So that's how you do those. Those are your special products that you need to know. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I will see you tomorrow.